You've heard of Bigfoot, maybe the Loch Ness Monster. But Latin America, we've got beasts that make those look like Saturday morning cartoons. Today I'm bringing you 5 of the strangest, wildest, creepiest creatures that have been whispered about in our area for centuries. From the Amazon jungle to the Caribbean and back to the high deserts of Mexico and a few more. And trust me, you're going to want to stick around for number 5. It's not just strange, it is disturbing. If you grew up in a Latino, Hispanic, Latinx, however you want to call it, family, then you know the feeling. You're at a get-together of family and friends who are family. It's late. A little music is still playing. Somebody cracks a beer, and your tía or abuelo starts telling that story. The beast they swear they saw in the woods, in the dark, in the hills, back in the day, back in the old country. You laughed. But you didn't sleep well that night, did you? I'm Andrew, and here I tell stories of the myths, legends, history, and unsolved mysteries happening everywhere from Mexico to Central America, South America, and the Caribbean. Why? Well, because if you're like me and you have roots in Latin America, these stories matter. They're part of our cultural DNA. And if you don't, well, now's your chance to hear the stories that have been living rent-free in our heads for generations. Now let's tell some monster stories, starting with a river spirit so big, the jungle still whispers her name. They say the river moved, but nothing was swimming. No boats, no storm, just a long ripple and then silence. Locals in Peru, Ecuador, and Brazil have a name for when that happens when you're on or near the Amazon River. They say you've just crossed paths with the Yacumama, mother of the water, and they say she's huge, maybe 100 feet long enough to swallow a canoe and the people in it. Some describe her as covered in moss, blending into the water. Others say she moves like the current, impossible to see until it's too late, and if you hear something that sounds like thunder under the water, it's her. In Loreto, Peru, people still talk about strange wakes on the water that ripple out with no boat around. Water that seems to throb or breathe. You feel her before you even see her. But here's what makes the Yacumama different from your standard everyday jungle monster. She's not evil. She's a guardian spirit of the rainforest. She punishes those who disrespect the river. Among the Achuar and other indigenous groups, people still leave offerings at the water before fishing or traveling. And they don't do it because it's tradition. They do it because the river has a spirit, and they want to keep it happy. Some researchers say that the Yacumama might just be an unusually long anaconda, or even submerged logs. But let's be real. When something moves under your boat and you can't explain it, you do not assume science. You assume you need to get the hell out of there. In the Amazon, few people say she's real out loud, but no one dares say she's not. If you enjoy stories like these, creatures tied to the land, stories passed down for generations, hit the like button, hit subscribe, and share this with a like-minded adventurer. Now let's go from an ancient river spirit to something that made the headlines all over the world. Now this one didn't come from some dusty old legend. It came out of the headlines, and you definitely heard about it. In 1995, in the town of Canóvanas, Puerto Rico, something started killing livestock. Dozens of goats and chickens, dead, drained of blood, no blood on the ground. The wounds? 2 small, perfect puncture holes. People panicked. Nobody knew what it was. And then it got a nickname. El Chupacabras, literally, the goat sucker. A woman named Madeline Tolentino gave one of the first detailed descriptions. Big eyes, leathery skin, walking upright with spines down its back. The mayor, Jose Chemo Soto, went full action movie and organized armed patrols to catch it. They never did, but the damage kept piling up. Over 150 animals were found dead that year. Then it spread over to Mexico, across the border to Texas, even down south to Chile. Always the same pattern: drained animals, strange marks, and no signs of struggle. Skeptics say it was probably dogs with mange. Others say it was just panic. But a lot of rural families had been telling stories like this long before 1995. In the Puerto Rican countryside, there were already tales of spirits that drained animals or drank blood. The Chupacabras might just have been a modern name for something much older, something people already feared. These days, you don't hear much about El Chupacabras, but in places like Veracruz, Mexico, or in Chile, or back on the island, they'll tell you, oh, it's out there. You just haven't seen it. Up in the cloud forests of Honduras, Belize, or Guatemala, they say if you get an eerie feeling when you're walking in the forest alone, it's because you're not alone. It feels like there's something watching you from the trees. That's because you've crossed paths with El Sisimite. El Sisimite is described as a tall, hairy, human-shaped creature that walks on two legs, avoids water, and smells like somewhere between rot and wet dirt. In places like Belize, they say it kidnaps women, maybe even forms family with them. In others, it just watches you from the trees and vanishes before you can blink. Huge footprints, guttural howls at night, a feeling that you're being followed. People don't always see it, but they remember its smell and that sound. And yes, if you're thinking Bigfoot or Sasquatch, this is their Central American primo. But the Sisimite isn't just a monster. In indigenous stories, especially among the Lenca and Maya Chorti, it's a guardian of the forest, a spirit that protects the mountains, like the Yacumama protects the river. It's not good, it's not evil, it's just dangerous if you disrespect the land. Some people think that it's just a howler monkey seen through the mist. Others think the story goes all the way back to a time when something like it did roam these mountains and never quite left our memory. Most people from the cities don't believe in El Sisimite, but in the rural areas, in the small villages, up in the hills, in the mountains, in the forests, they definitely don't walk home alone at night. Now here's one that doesn't live in the mountains. It follows you home. You're walking at night, alone. You hear something behind you, chains dragging on the road. You turn, and there it is, a massive black dog, glowing red eyes, hooves instead of paws. That's El Cadejo. And in Central America, people say there's two of them. The white Cadejo protects travelers, and the black Cadejo, it follows the lost and makes sure they stay that way. In El Salvador, Guatemala, and Nicaragua, the Cadejo shows up in hundreds of stories. He follows the drunk, the reckless, the ones who tempt fate. And he doesn't always attack. Sometimes he just watches. Sometimes he walks beside you, judging your soul. In the countryside, people still leave holy water by the door and splash it on their porches. They hang ruda, a protective herb that's known as rue in English. And they turn their clothes inside out if they think they're being followed. And this isn't just some urban legend. The Cadejo's roots go deep. In Nahua beliefs, and remember, parts of Central America were once Mexico, so there would be influence, people were born with a Nahual, a spirit companion that walks with them through life. If your spirit turns dark, so does your Nahual. In places like Chiapas in southern Mexico and Guatemala, parents still warn their kids. If you hear a whistle close by, that means it's far away. But if it sounds far away, it's already behind you. So if you hear chains in the night and your dogs start to cry, you might just want to turn your clothes inside out, just in case. And as promised, let's end with the weirdest one of them all. In the rainforests of western Brazil and parts of Bolivia, rubber tappers, indigenous communities, and forest rangers all tell stories of a creature that walks on two legs, screams like a person in pain, and smells like rotting meat and gunpowder. They call it the Mapinguari. The Mapinguari is sometimes called a South American Bigfoot, but compared to the Sisimite, this one is a whole different and more disturbing beast. Some say it's red-furred and toweringly tall. Some say its feet face backwards, a detail shared with creatures like la patasola in Colombia and la curupira in Brazil. But the Mapinguari's most terrifying feature? A mouth in its chest. Not a place you'd normally expect a mouth. It's a vertical slit where its chest should be, stuffed with yellowing, decaying teeth and dripping saliva. Hence the stench. Some say it growls from there, not its head. Others say that mouth doesn't open until it bites. A second mouth that bites down while the creature grabs, gnashing wildly and leaving torn flesh in its wake. Among indigenous groups, the Mapinguari has been part of oral tradition for centuries. But they don't necessarily see it as a monster, but as a guardian of the forest, like the Sisimite and the Yacumama. It shows up when its sacred land is disrespected and the balance of the forest is broken. Some folklorists think that this could be a distant memory of the Megatherium, a giant ground sloth that went extinct over 10,000 years ago. Others say it's a warning, telling outsiders and younger generations to tread lightly in the forest, especially after dark. In places like Sao Paulo or Rio de Janeiro, the city people roll their eyes when they hear about the legends of the country folk. But deep in the forest, those country folk call the Mapinguari something that you hope you never meet. Now, the strangest thing about these beasts isn't just the sightings, it's how they stick in our memory. Passed around at family gatherings, whispered during blackouts, murmured on long road trips at night. They live in our stories and they live in our fear, and somehow that makes them even more real. If you like this episode, hit the like button. And if your family ever shared stories like these, drop one of them in the comments. I know you have one. You can also DM us a story at Instagram at AndyColonVO or send the story direct at andy@andycancun.com, because that's how we keep these stories alive. And share the story with someone who'd love it, and join our community by subscribing. Friend, I'm Andrew, and this is the Mysteries of Latin America. And I'll see you next time, unless something sees you first. Adios.